Hey there, bookkeeping side hustle community. It's Kate, and we are here today with an awesome interview with Roger Knecht of Universal Accounting, and he is going to be helping those of you looking for jobs or not knowing whether you want a job or want your own business. This is going to be all focused on finding the job in the accounting industry that you want, and we're going to just use his years of expertise to get some advice for y'all. So I've got two purposes for this interview. One is I want Roger to help give advice about how folks can discern whether they should be looking for a job or building their own business. I think there's lots of like mixed messaging out there about what's the best path for different types of personalities and skill sets and different phases of life. And so he's seen a lot of people build careers in this industry, and so I want him to talk about employment versus entrepreneurship. And then after we've scared off everyone who really realizes they want to be an entrepreneur and we're just talking to the employment seekers, he's going to share as many tips as possible in the 30 minutes or so for folks who want to find a job and get a job and land a job and keep a job and thrive in a career working for someone else. So a full disclosure, there's some resources below. They are affiliate links. He has a lot of material from it's pretty much soup to nuts for the accounting for the accounting profession. Employment, scaling, virtual CFO, how to be a bookkeeper, all of it. And so there's a couple links below that we're going to keep mentioning to drive to. A lot of them are free, but if you end up purchasing anything from him, it is a referral link. So with all that out of the way, Roger, I would love for you to just give us a little bit of more of your background, and then we're going to spend some time on that first question about employment versus entrepreneurship. But tell us who you are.
First of all, President Universal Accounting Center, but to keep it relevant to today's topic, years and years ago, before I actually worked with Universal Accounting, my role was doing temp placement and permanent placement employment with accounting professionals. So basically what I was doing at the time is I was working for Robert Half International, and then afterwards Accounting Solutions, where I would take individuals and whatever skill set they had, place them in entry level, mid-management, upper end, basically giving them temporary assignments or permanent placement opportunities. And so my experience finding employment for accounting does actually reside in a lot of that. I did it for a while and really enjoyed it. It was quite fun. And that's coincidentally how I became familiar with Universal Accounting. I was taking those graduates from the school and I was placing them on assignment. And I found that those candidates were very good. My employers that were my customer liked these individuals, felt they had the skills that they needed. Therefore, I would go back to the school and I would take the next graduating class and take those individuals interested. And we would screen them, of course, find out what skills they had, consider their background and experience, and I'd place them on a job. And so that was my inventory. I was going back to Universal Accounting as one of those key places where I could find competent, capable individuals and put them on assignment.
That's really fascinating. So maybe I want to take a quick detour. So Universal Accounting Center, when you were, before you went to work for them, you thought of it as a school. So it's like a training ground. You just use the word school. So
it is a post-secondary school. We used to have campuses all around the United States. And as campuses, you would go into a traditional learning environment with a classroom setting, with an instructor, and you'd be taught curriculum. And so at one point, we had 22 campuses around the United States. We have since gone online. Our last campus was closed about 10 years ago, and we've gone entirely virtual. So all of our training is done online, and we have individuals that enroll in our courses around the world. We're primarily United States, but we have people around the world that actually do enroll in our courses.
Well, we'll bring you back another day to talk about that. I don't think I realized. I certainly didn't know the history of the 22 locations and physical in-person place stuff. So as long as y'all are still educators, though, we've got a lot of people who want to learn accounting nuts and bolts. But I'm going to assume that people watching this interview, they know accounting, or some accounting, because if they're wanting to work in the industry. So let's get back to that question about how someone can discern whether they should be an employee and build a career, an ambitious career even, inside of a company, or whether they should start their own business. Because I think there's a lot of people who are trying to do both at the same time. They're confused. They're not happy in their job, but then they're trying entrepreneurship, and that's not the better, the grass wasn't necessarily greener. So what are your thoughts on that, and what have you seen over the years?
So this is really difficult to answer only because I think every person has a unique situation, but I will attempt to address it. The first thing is I think entrepreneurship is an ethereal kind of thing. You really don't have it or do have it. It's either something compelling or driving within you, this force that's causing you to want to go out and be on your own, do something that you see no one else is providing in the area. And that could be a very, very compelling thing to cause you to go out there and share your message of how your company or service is unique. And that's going to be what drives you to start or build your business. But for the person that is looking for stability, that likes, let's say, the comfort of consistency, all of those things play into more of an employment situation. And let me give you an example. I've had individuals that really considered starting their own business, but they really struggled with the marketing, the selling. They didn't know how to price, and the client retention, the nurturing that needs to go on with the client to retain them over periods of time. Those were things that are outside of bookkeeping, accounting, tax preparation. And so if you're just someone that enjoys specifically those tasks, it's hard to kind of couple those with all those other responsibilities. If you feel that you like to talk about accounting or tax, if you feel you like to actually be out there proactively helping people realize that it is something that they can benefit from as a business owner, if you did their books, if you have those types of ambitions, you have those conversations, then the entrepreneur spirit starts to resonate or come out of you. And the other thing that I would just lastly add is I've had many of people who, rather than jump entirely into starting and building their business, they have a job and they supplement that job with a weekend or evening type opportunity with some clients, a handful of clients, just to see, can they do it? Do they enjoy it? Is it something that they would like to jump full force into? And I really think that's a nice compliment. Day job with a handful of clients you're working with on the side. See if you like that. And if you enjoy it, that's a good indication that maybe you can do this full time as a primary income.
That sounds great. I'd love to know, those of y'all watching, if y'all have y'all's keyboards accessible and aren't just listening, where do you fall on the spectrum? I mean, this interview is titled Job Placement Tips. So if you are looking for a job, let us know. Have you been someone who's tried both and still trying to find what? Can you hear me?
Hmm. I could
Sorry,
hear
y'all.
you. You were
I think I
breaking up
might
a little
have
bit, but I could hear
second.
you.
Y'all can hear if someone watching can comment. Okay, awesome. So thanks for that advice about what people need to consider. I do think it's kind of more of a, go for some long walks and really think about it, because before you quit a job or like make some rash moves, or before you shut your business down. We're all going to have bad days in business too, but I think there's some differences in like personality that it's important to consider. And so just want to let people think about that. So now let's
Yeah,
talk to those people who want the job.
real
Oh,
quick,
go ahead.
real quick, one more thing. I talk to people all the time who are entrepreneurs that did start their business, and I will say in their situations, it is not uncommon to hear that most people started their business not with the intention of doing it full time, not with the intent of running their own company. They all dabbled in it weekends, weeknights, and they found that it was something they enjoyed. It's more than anything the fear of the unknown. They're not sure how they're going to market, sell, and price their services. Once they learn that, the entrepreneurship starts to become less scary and less distant, and they begin to embrace it. So it's not you have it today and you can't ever get it. That entrepreneur spirit can be generated. So I would like to point out that most of the people I talk to, even with thriving accounting and tax businesses, typically didn't start with the intent of doing this the way they are today.
It's like a muscle, maybe,
Mhm.
like we're kind of noodly like teenagers, and then we like can bulk up.
Yep. Oh yeah.
Someone's asking, which one do you think is easier to pursue without experience, entrepreneurship or employment?
Entrepreneurship, definitely. That
Oh,
that
okay.
I'm going to be very clear. when you're looking for employment, there's a lot of hoops that the people start to jump you through with resumes and so forth, and you can easily be eliminated before even being given the chance. When if you're actually working with business owners, they may take somebody that's very committed, very loyal. I know of people that have had these opportunities where they actually prove themselves to be committed to the company, and the business owner says, you know what, I need you to do these books, and they're willing to go through that learning curve with you. And I have found that people who didn't intend to be bookkeepers become bookkeepers with no background or experience in bookkeeping. And
Right.
so that story is quite common. I've run across it. There's a person, Lisa Campbell, that comes to mind. She was a business owner, never had bookkeeping accounting classes, and from a business owner perspective, she chose to embrace the accounting bookkeeping space as her next entrepreneurial opportunity. So she was in a situation where she just realized the business potential, and learning the bookkeeping, the debits and credits, she had been exposed to it as the business owner before, but this was her next business opportunity. And so, yeah, it was a lot easier for her to do that than go out and try and get a job with a resume saying she has no experience.
Simon is saying that he is finding it harder because he's older to finding it harder to find the job. So maybe his only option is to do it himself. So maybe we'll be encouraging you. We'll flip this. You came here looking for job tips, and now we're going to motivate you to start your own job. Let's get into those job tips, Roger. I this is just an informal conversation, y'all. The more questions y'all ask in the chat, the better we'll be able to pick his brain. I'm gonna try to keep us below 30 minutes though, y'all. So don't be shy about typing in your stuff. But right now, I'm just gonna let him kind of start off with, you've got someone who you're mentoring, someone having a coffee, saying, "Hey, I know you know about the accounting industry, and I want to work I want to build a career working in this field for someone else." What's the first step?
First step is, I think, mindset. So I'm going to come at this probably differently than everyone else is expecting. The one thing I remember very distinctly is a lot of people assumed that the process to find new employment was short. And especially when a recession starts to come in to play like it may be now, you're finding that the job opportunities take longer to actually realize. And so
Huh.
there was a rule of thumb that we had in the business that we would quickly tell people, and it was oftentimes very shocking, but is very important, which is to say, 10,000 for every 10,000 of dollars that you earn in income, it's going to take that many months to find employment. So if you're looking for a $50,000 a year job, it's going to take you 5 months to find that
Okay.
position. It takes time to not only get your feelers out there and start doing the interviews and so forth, but even if the interviewing opportunity presents itself, it takes time to go through the interviews. And after you've done the interviews, then you get the job offer. It's not like you start tomorrow necessarily. And there are, obviously, being that this is an average, exceptions to that rule. There's those that take longer and those that are shorter. But to go into this with the mindset or understanding that this is going to take you at least 1 month per $10,000 that you're intending to ask for or be paid is very helpful. It causes a person to relax a little bit and not be so hyped up on, well, I'll have a job next month. I'll be done with this in 4 or 5 weeks. And that's too often not the case. And so you need to be prepared for that mentally. The second thing that I would do is make it clear what you want to apply for. I think too often times people just start applying for anything and everything, and it too often can lead to getting the job you don't want. And so be intentional, sit back and really reflect on, what are you good at? What do you like? What do you want to do? For example, do you work well independently? Do you work in a great place where you like to do the entire bookkeeping process? You like that responsibility? You enjoy the autonomy of that? Or do you work better in a team environment and in a, let's say, in an accounting department where you work with in collaboration and numerous individuals that are overseeing the accounting for a company? These, I think, are very important as you're considering where to apply and what you want to do. And so those two things are first and foremost. Let's get clarity as to what we're applying for. That way we can deliberately screen out what we do and what we don't want to do.
I mean, I feel like we can almost shut the interview down now. That was so good. That was so helpful. I have never heard, like, I'm just I'm getting chills thinking that for the people who are listening to this, it's going to really, that information is going to really bless them. So I'm curious, y'all who are listening, if you've been on the job search, are you resonating with that 10,000 per month figure? But you just see, it's so easy to get discouraged, and I think just that one little gem is gonna, it's gonna make the discouraging part of job search not so hard. And then you're not applying for 10,000 jobs. You're applying for the 40 application. I don't know how many you suggest. Maybe you'll tell us how many to apply for, but a much more limited number when you know the kind of work that you want to do. So I hope that part's encouraging. And we're not going to stop. We're going to keep going. But I'm like that was just great. So we've got the mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We know it's going to take a while. We know we're going to be deliberate and thoughtful and really like self-aware. What do we do now?
The next step is
we go to monster.com. Is that what everybody does these days? I don't know.
yeah, there are those various services like Indeed and so forth, but you have to have something in place before you go there.
Okay.
And these are critical elements that you have to start. And the first thing is a template for a cover letter and a resume template. And when I say template, what I'm saying is these are only starting parts, because every time you apply for a position, your cover letter needs to be adapted to the position you're applying, as well as your resume. Your resume isn't static. And so I think that's very important for people to realize. So we want to start with a cover letter. And I think this distinction is hugely important. It's understanding what the purposes of each are.
Okay.
First of all, the cover letter is meant to actually get an individual interested in looking at your resume. That's the only reason why you write a cover letter. You're trying to take a narrative of what they're looking for and say why you are the ideal candidate for them to then say, well, let me look at their resume. Now, what's the purpose of the resume? The resume is to actually check off enough boxes that they say, I want to now meet the person. Sometimes people believe that the resume's purpose is to get you the job. That's not the case. The job comes from your efforts, from meeting you, seeing you. That's what the interview is for. So we want to be very clear and deliberate. If you're not getting enough interviews, it's because either your resume or your cover letter aren't sufficient. So we want to start with the cover letter. And here's my advice. The cover letter, very simply, is this: take the job application that the individual has written when they're trying to find you. They're going to say in there, we look for dynamic, fun people that love accounting. Well, in my cover letter, what do I want to say? I'm dynamic, fun loving. I need to use their language. Now, to be less obvious, I would suggest using synonyms for the words that they're stating. You're just repeating back to them what it is they've said that they're looking for in the cover letter. Now, in that job description, they oftentimes list skill sets or tasks that will be performed, and they're trying to get someone to check those off. Now, in today's technology, some places, if they're very big companies, they'll use technology to scan these and look for keyword density. So you've got to realize that your resume now needs to mirror those tasks and responsibilities. You need to consider, if they've listed number one, let's say Excel, well, you've got Excel, but coincidentally, you just put it down as the last thing. You didn't realize that it was something so important. Just change the order of your resume. Take the resume and move Excel to the top of the list. Now, I want to be abundantly clear. I am not suggesting that you, in the cover letter or resume, purport you do things that you do not have skills in. We're not trying to mirror the application and mislead the employer. What we're trying to do is take everything that they want that I have and bring it to the top, because the whole purpose of the cover letter is to get them to look at the resume. The resume is to get me an interview. So I hope that clarification helps, because too often I see static cover letters, just generic ones coming over, and I see static resumes that could be so much better if somebody took the time to just kind of change the order, emphasize certain things. You might have actually not listed on your resume something you have experience in that the employer's asking for. It's like, oh yeah, I can do that. I forgot to mention that. And now you add it to the resume, but you may choose to take it off on the next job because it's irrelevant, because you're trying to keep it maybe one page. So those are just some helpful tips.
So I want to point out, when we were discussing in advance of this interview, you have a free resume course, right?
Mm-hmm.
So y'all, below the main link that I have sending y'all to is a free course that his school, the Universal Accounting Center, has put together to help students, and you'll sign up, download the free course, and you'll be a student. So I would say it doesn't hurt to take a look at that. Couple of people are saying they kind of find it overwhelming, like what you're saying, the cover letters and the resumes, when you're applying to multiple jobs. Is there any way to make make it faster or less overwhelming? Or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So there is a way to manage this. What I do is I actually have and you can do it in Google Docs or whatever you do, your file directory. You basically have a file that is your resume and your cover letter. Okay. Now you have your standard or generic one that you're repurposing. And what I do is for every job I apply to, I tweak it and I take that resume and I actually name it the name of the company that I've submitted it for. So that if they want to interview me, I actually have a copy of the resume and cover letter that I used that I can print off and take with me so that they're actually seeing me bring what I sent them originally. So you've actually over time start to actually create with the generic versions multiple resumes and cover letters that you're using for each of the applications that you're submitting. So that's a great way to keep this simplified. It keeps you organized, and at the end of the day, when you're invited to an interview, you can bring the literal one that you brought or submitted originally, rather than like, oh man, I can't remember which one I used, I don't know which
Yeah.
one I actually submitted. If you just save them using the name of the company, so and so resume, your name, let's say, dash the employer, all of a sudden these are all organized in a way that you can find them and repurpose them.
In Google Docs, they make it really easy. It says make a copy, and then you
Hmm.
just put the
Change
name
the
in front
name.
of the where it says copy of. You just delete copy of and put the name.
Yep,
Um, so I got a wild one. Have you been hearing about this Chat GPT?
I have. I actually
So
use it.
can we take a job description and our cover letter and tell Chat GPT make my cover letter apply uh, relevant to this job description?
Uh,
I haven't tried that.
100%. And
Guys,
if
y'all
you're
hearing this?
comfortable, I would definitely use it, because here's the beauty of Chat GTP. You're in a position where once it's created the content, you don't just use it. You can also modify it a little bit. You
For
can
sure.
tweak it. So have it do the heavy lifting. Put in what the job application or the job description is. Have you put in maybe your resume, and then all of a sudden say write a cover letter, and it would draft a cover letter, and you could take that cover letter, tweak it a little bit, and use that. Save it, submit it, and you're good.
All right, y'all. Always do the tweaking that keeps us real and honest, and then you're not going to be sitting in an interview saying, "What did Chat GPT say I did again?" Um, and
And you saved it and you brought it, so you know what it said.
yeah. Okay, so that's the little, the last few months of worth of news, the new technology that's out there, Chat GPT, if y'all aren't familiar with it. I feel like there's a way to use that in an ethical and responsible way to help you in the hard season of the applying for so many jobs. So it's
It's
gonna
simply a
minimize
tool.
it's gonna minimize the like the check in the boxes, so then you can spend more effort shining more. You really then we then that's once you're in the chair opposite, know, and doing it, it's you or you have to be yourself at that point. So use the technology. If anyone's used ChatGPT for the job search, let us know. So hopefully some people will feel less overwhelmed now. So we got the interview. So we got the resume, the cover letter, and the resume. That's hopefully going to get us the interview. Is that like the next? Is that the next step? I guess.
It is. So once you have the resume, you can go up, create a profile on these different employment sites, Indeed, Monster, whatever the case may be, Career Jobs, Career Builder rather. And as you do those, one of the things that you're going to do now is get interviews. Somebody's going to actually say, "Hey, I like what I'm seeing. Would you mind interviewing?" And whether it be a remote interview like we're having today, where you're actually in maybe a home or something being interviewed via the internet, or in person, there is some stuff you need to do before that conversation. And the first
Okay.
thing that I would suggest is researching the company. You need to go to their website, find out a little bit of their history. How did they start? What do they do? See if they have a mission statement. You need to become familiar with who they are. And I would highly recommend that as you resonate with certain elements, be comfortable finding a way to bring up that you did look at their website. You did like this part of why that company exists. This stuff interests you. Lots of times you can actually find employment simply because it's a hobby or an interest that you personally have that you can then turn into employment. Well, if you have a hobby that you personally do on the weekends and so forth, and you find a company that does that you're applying for, you want to bring that to the table that say, this interests me just beyond a job. It interests me in just what I'm curious and enjoy doing myself. And so what we want to do is do our research before the interview so that we can actually integrate into our conversation some of who they are, some of who we are, and why we are a good match. They need to hear that. They don't know this.
Okay. Then the day comes and we do our interview. Are most interviews virtual these days?
I don't know if I'd say the word most. They're common. I'd say they're common. Lots of times what it is the initial interview may be one that is remote, unless it's obvious that you live in a place that doesn't, it's not conducive to you traveling to their office, and then they may all be remote. But to say that they're most, no, but I'd say it's very common. And I think most of us are comfortable with that now. I don't know that this is something that's uncomfortable any longer, but the principles still apply. I need to maintain eye contact. I need to actually stay engaged and interested. I need to be willing to answer questions. There's a lot of things, and they're covered in the course, but it's just basically being willing to answer questions with more than a yes no answer. It's being willing to open up and kind of communicate. And if you are relatable, if you're someone that they can see a connection with, that rapport, then that really helps your interview go a long way.
Y'all, I have a tiny piece of tape, masking tape, and I have the word smile right next to the eye of my camera. And that helps me a lot whenever I'm like feeling too intense or worried, or like I'm like, oh no, just smile again. Just
Smile.
just smile. Don't know why I'm smiling, but it's my computer's telling me to. So that's a tip for just being on camera, I guess. And because I'm on camera a lot. So maybe and it keeps your eyes, it's right where your eyes are supposed to be looking. My tape is pink, so it draws my eyes. Okay, so where are we now? We got the interview. We are on time. We've got our teeth brushed. We've got our hair combed.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
things.
Here's what I'm going to do.
Okay.
Two things, and this is particularly important for in-person interviews. And even if it's remote, I still feel it applies. The first thing is you've got to figure out how to do this before you're trying to go to the interview. Try getting on, if it's technology, earlier so that you can get any of the kinks out. You don't want to be dealing with technology issues beforehand. But in person, I would highly recommend the day before or prior to the interview, at least trying to swing by and find the location where you're going to be. Nothing's worse than getting all anxious because you cannot find where the office is.
Yeah.
And so for you to go earlier and comfortably know where the parking lot is, where the door is, here's the company, it reduces so much the anxiety. The other thing that I would suggest is you can call ahead if you're doing an in-person interview and literally ask the front desk, by the way, I'm coming in for an interview tomorrow. I'm interviewing with so-and-so. I just wanted to know dress code. Is this a professional environment, casual environment? What would you recommend I come as? Just doing a little bit of that effort pays off huge. And if you can do that before the interview, it just really makes it go a lot smoother. The other thing is the application. And this is where I think a lot of people struggle. They get to an interview and the receptionist perhaps or someone in the office is going to give them an application. I have your resume, but I need you to fill out our company application typically. And in that process, they're going to ask questions on the application. And the last thing you need to be doing is struggling. Like, when did I work for this company? What's the contact phone number for this company? What was the name of my boss at that company? These are common questions that will be on an application, but you didn't put them on your resume. So where do you find them? And I do feel it's important to, before the interview, have that information readily available so you can fill out the application. So rather than taking 30 minutes to fill it out, you complete it in 5-10 minutes. And the anxiety again goes down because you came prepared with, I worked at this company from this year to this year. I worked with this employer. This was my boss. This is how much I got paid. You need that information readily available to make this a simple process. So those are just some tips that I give for preparing to the interview. And then lastly, about hygiene, I can't say enough about this. Brush your teeth, wear deodorant, shower before you go.
Shave. Oh, yeah.
Shave. I mean, come on, people. And I say this because unfortunately, too often it is an issue. And if you can't take care of yourself physically, why do you think I want to sit next to you all day long? So, this is, I think, an appropriate place for me to say to you, I don't care how old you are, hygiene matters. And so brush your teeth, comb your hair, wear deodorant, and there you go.
Think of the virtual equivalents, y'all, as we are more virtual and we're trying to build cloud accounting, flexible careers, like use a background if you need to, or make sure your background looks good. Make sure, you're not shining your camera on your chest, put some boxes underneath it. Like, yeah, it's worse when it's females. So think of the virtual equivalent of it as well. Don't take it lightly. Like even maybe brush your teeth before, just to because you're got your head in the game. I'm gonna move us, Roger, because you have more resources for free that people can get. So I want us to get through. We've had the interview. What else do you want to say about just the application process? What are maybe 2 or 3 more things you want to add to survive that 30 minutes that you're there, or maybe the post interview? What are the last few highlights? Just because people can continue to interact with you later if they are valuing your information, you've got more material for us.
I'm going to give you 3 things, and I'll try to
Okay.
make it quick. First of all, in person, if you are interviewing in person, feel free to ask for a tour. It makes a great first impression if you're curious about the business in its entirety. And generally, the person doing the interview will take you on a tour the long way to the office. And it gives you a chance to maybe see people along the way. Be sure to make eye contact, wave, if possible, shake hands, engage. That makes a great first impression, and it allows you to be the candidate that everyone else is compared to, because more than just the interviewer knows who you are because you met other people in the firm. So that's huge. Second thing I'd want to point out is in the interview, typically the first interview is them getting to know you. And so it's not really 20 questions of what are my hours, how much am I going to be paid, what are your benefits. That typically is reserved for the second interview. The first interview is, can you woo them enough to rise to the top that they want to speak with you again? So don't feel like you have to come in with 20 questions just yet. That will come in the second interview generally, of let's negotiate. We're interested in you. Let's talk about the particulars. So save that till the next one. You don't want to interrogate the interviewer and put them off. It's a turn off, in other words. Okay. The third thing I'd point out, and this is huge, if you really do like the job and it's something that you're eager to do, it's important that you follow the interview with a thank you. And it's sending them cookies, donuts. It's sending a handwritten thank you letter saying, I really appreciate you taking the time to meet with me. The more I learn about your company and position, I'm more excited about working there. This will be wonderful. I can't tell you how much that boost, that lift is from people who go the extra mile rather than just merely being interviewed. If you can go that extra mile, you'll stand out above all the other candidates. And that's a huge thing. So be willing to do something after the interview to express gratitude for them taking time to meet with you.
All right. I want to ask one question from the chat. People, there are locations online where we can put ourself, like our standard resume out there. And so someone's asking, well, how do we know what to put for the regular upload of Monster or Indeed or LinkedIn? Do you have any tips for that, where I guess that's more of the blasting kind of a resume rather than
it's your generic resume. It's your first resume. So the advice I'd give you is go online, just Google it. What is the standard responsibilities, tasks, skill sets for this position, for a bookkeeper, for a tax preparer, for an account manager, whatever it is. And you'll be very quickly shown these are the things that people are expected to have skill wise. Odds are the employer did the exact same thing. They're not an accountant typically. And so generally what they're doing is they're searching. I need to hire a bookkeeper. I don't know what I'm hiring. I don't know what to interview for. Go to Google, and they go to Google. What does a bookkeeper do? And they draw.
They go to ChatGPT.
Exactly. And so they write up their job description. All you're doing is the exact same thing, but beforehand. And you're taking what that suggestion is, you're tailoring your resume to that need to put on Monster, Indeed, and so forth. You're just removing from it the things that you perhaps don't have skill sets in, or you're reordering it. You're heavy. You have a lot of experience here. And that's one of the things you want to do. Now, another thing, just as a quick aside, At the generic level, you may want to actually exclude like industry experience as being your primary thing. But if you go interviewing for jobs in that industry, you want to elevate that as I've been doing this for 20 years. Does that make
Okay.
sense?
Okay. Okay. Best place for people to connect with you, Roger. I know you have a podcast. Tell us how to access that. There's links below to it, but tell us about the podcast and anywhere else they should meet you.
Correct. So I do host a podcast. It's called Building the Premier Accounting Firm. It's for people that are actually starting or building their accounting
Okay.
tax business. It's a great conversational type thing where I interview experts and get their insights on a variety of topics. So clearly love to introduce anyone that's considering that route. It's a great place to get a great deal of resource. Secondly, connecting with me on LinkedIn. Love to connect with you on LinkedIn. That would be wonderful. I'm more than happy to chat. So message me and I'd be more than happy to communicate that way. And then as for us, you can visit us at universalaccounting.com or universalaccountingschool.com. Either place has a good deal of information and resources. And yeah, we have a number of programs as a school to help the accounting professional excel in their careers.
All right, y'all. If you end up wanting to use an affiliate link, reach out to me and I'll provide you one. But get in his orbit and soup to nuts here about what the resources they have for accounting. It's bookkeeping. It's tax, it's management. So I'm going to wrap us up. We're at 35:33, so a little bit longer, but that's not unusual for me. I really appreciate your insight. You've got several thank yous here in the chat, and I know folks watching this replay are going to be appreciative. So we'll bring you back. If you think of anything else that you want to share, let us know and I'll spread the word for you. We've got a lot of people who are hard workers and who want to break into this industry as a long-term career. So we appreciate you very, very much, Roger.
It's a pleasure. Thank you for having me on, Kat. And more importantly, remember this, if it's about accounting, it is universal.
Okay. Adios, everyone. Bye.